Hello, this is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Program Director for Communication, Media, and Ethics at Mid-America Christian University. This video is a part of our mini lecture series for media culture and social influence, COM 2113, and the content we'll be discussing in this video relates to our week 2 readings. All right, and so just to recap those readings, we are tackling this week chapters 1 and 2 of Berger's Media and Society, as well as a couple of supplementary readings that are hyperlinked into our D2L page for you, okay? And so one of the great things about Berger's Media and Society book, again, is I feel like, in my impression and previous uses in classes and just personal introduction to it, it is very reader-friendly in that what I mean is he writes with a fluid style. It's easy for us to understand or comprehend. His definitions are crisp and to the point. Whereas many of the upper level readings or theories you might become introduced to or gain exposure to could have the tendency to be quite challenging, and perhaps we even get a little bit of an introduction to one this week. But back to Berger, Media and Society, one of the things to look out for as you're working through the first pair of chapters here, and again, they're relatively short, is some excellent key terms, right? Oh, I'm a sucker for good key terms. And so Berger is chock full of them. I think you can, they're also easy to identify because he's going to put them in bold. Hey, look right here. Here's some rich key terms. Give me a little focus here. Right here, right? So you're going to come across these, and you know, it's non-essential that you are memorizing every single one. We're not going to take exams where you have to, I don't know, fill in the blank or regurgitate these types of pieces of information in dribs and drabs. That's just not the way we are studying and approaching communication at this point in time. And so, but they do provide you a lot of useful information, terms that I will use in conversation and lecture, maybe even in our discussion boards and assignments that you receive throughout this course and others. And so he talks about genres and mass communication, and one of the great things he does is breaks down very short, thus consumable, case studies for us to pour through. And the clever way in which Berger presents some of these case studies is he uses that opportunity to bring into conversation other theories, other theorists, their concepts or conceptions of communication and how it relates to media. And so I think you're just going to find a lot of utility there, and you might even get some more digestible introductions to concepts that maybe some of your favorite, I don't know, news channels or whoever says these are bad things, right? Don't study this person. Their ideas are anti-American or something like that, right? Which is a little bit out of context, right? That's a little bit sensational to make such a claim, especially if you have little information on it. So he allows us a little bit of a peekaboo into some of these theories and theorists, and I think you'll find that very interesting in your weekly readings. We get a lot of, chapter 2 is pretty straightforward again. It gives you a lot of content. There are some statistics that I find fascinating. They'll tie into our discussion. And while at first they seem a little bit outdated, that's where we come and fill in the blanks with some of our updated uses and experiences, and maybe even some data you can locate on your own about what our contemporary media consumption looks like. Because there is a correlation between the amount of media we are either exposed to or consume, either directly or indirectly, and its inevitable effects on us. And that gets us to a bit of a transition point here to discuss the supplementary readings this week, okay? And so just to clarify, one of them is a foundational essay in the history of cultural studies, and really an under championed theory for communication as well. And that is Stuart Hall's concept of encoding and decoding. And so, like so many of the strategic readings we try to select for you, Stuart Hall's encoding decoding model lends itself both to the study of media studies, as well as how closely it resembles our own communication model in the field of communication or communication studies. And so that's something to think about. Is there, you will often find in many of these ideas in higher education and from theorists some crossover appeal, right? Sometimes we just have to work concepts out in our own words, in our own language, to make the most sense of them, even though perhaps someone else has already done that work for us in other words, right? Through their alternative perspectives. Anyway, I'm going much too far here, but Stuart Hall introduces to us his encoding decoding model, technically in this book, but again, not required for this class. There's a PDF of that available on D2L, and do your best to work through it. It's a little bit challenging in places, and that's okay. It's okay to be challenged, to feel challenged. Just don't give up, or if you ever get too bogged down in readings, work on strategically skimming through those. Make it to the end. See if you can figure it out in this way or another. Well, one of the reasons we have that reading paired with another one is it presents us some answers that hopefully be more comprehensive than some of the high theory exposure from Stuart Hall, and thus brings us to our continued use of this book, The Communication Theory and Millennial Popular Culture. We're looking at chapter 8, and it's on Stuart Hall's model. And Stuart Hall's model in particular, the encoding decoding model of mass communication, is presented to us through a case study using a TV text. The text in particular, a show many of you are, if not already familiar with, you've had at least heard of, perhaps even binge watched on at some point. That TV text being Breaking Bad. Okay, so that's a peek into this week's readings, and I will have a follow-up commentary with a little bit more detail for us on understanding Hall's encoding decoding model.